Hey everybody, welcome back to RotoCurve. I just want to get right into it today. There's a huge slate, 14 games. There's 15 total on the day, but one game starts at 4 o'clock and is not included in the main slate, so we won't be talking about that one. But of these 14 games, there's about 9 or 10 of them where there's an ace pitching. So there's a lot of guys to get through today. There's a lot of things to sort through, so let's get right into it. For as bad as yesterday's pitching slate was, there was only a few guys that we liked in the early slate. Unfortunately, they were okay. In the late slate, Chris Sexton was bad, and he was really the only pitcher that was originally worth rostering. Jason Hamill didn't have a great day either. So for as bad as yesterday's slate was, today's slate is just as good in terms of pitching, and here's a few reasons why. I'm just going to list off some names that are throwing today. Clayton Kershaw against the Pirates. Jose Fernandez against the Atlanta Braves. We have guys like Jacob deGrom, Dallas Keuchel, Sonny Gray, Garrett Cole, and that's not even it. We still have guys like Cole Hamels against the Mariners and Lance Lynn against the Brewers. So other than just those guys, there are some other Tier 2 pitchers like James Shields to pitch today. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of guys to pick through, and honestly, you can only pick 2 or 3 in your lineups and even one depending on what site you're playing on. So let's decipher which ones we're going to look at. My favorite part about these kind of slates is you can basically take any one of these pitchers in the top echelon of aces, and you're going to get them for a bit of a discount in terms of own price because a lot of guys will be using a lot of different pitchers. You're not going to see a guy that's 40 or 50% owned in cash, except for maybe Clayton Kershaw. And that's a good thing because it promotes variance, it promotes disparity. And that's exactly what we want to see in cash games. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of points scored tomorrow because of all the pitchers. You're going to see guys in the 30s, maybe guys in the 40s. And on those kind of nights, if you get a lineup or a stack with some good pitchers, sometimes you see north of 200 points. So it might be a big night, and that's exactly what we're looking forward to. And with all these good pitchers, there's a lot of different lineups you're going to make. I'm going to love playing on 2-pitcher sites, and this is going to be one of my favorite days to play on 3-pitcher sites with all the guys that I like. Fantasy Feud is the only 3-pitcher site out there that I'm aware of right now, so it's an excellent night to play there. We've been playing there lately. I know a lot of guys at RotoCurve have been playing there as well and really liking it. So if you haven't joined up over there, go sign up. There's a referral code CURVE. You get up to 100% deposit bonus, up to $500. And as always, RotoCurve gives a free $25 bonus to anyone on the site if you deposit $50 or more for your first deposit. So be sure to take that to advantage. Go play that 3-pitcher site because there's a lot of them to go through today. So let's talk about those that we looked at. Obviously, I mentioned some guys before with Kershaw, Fernandez, deGrom, Keuchel, Sonny Gray, and guys like Cole Hamels and Garrett Cole and Lance Lynn. So which one of these guys should we play? Now, my top guy on the day is Jacob deGrom, and it sounds questionable because there's a guy named Clayton Kershaw at the top that's obviously one of the best pitchers in baseball, and he's on fire right now. But hear me out. This is why I like deGrom. The Rays present the best matchup of any pitcher that's pitching today. Obviously, you've heard us talk about Rays facing righties all year long, and deGrom is a righty, and he's one of the best in the game. So his high strikeout rate, the Rays' ability, or the Rays' tendency to strike out a lot, they don't hit for power against righties. They're not hitting for average as well either. So a guy like deGrom can be very dominant. And one thing about deGrom is he's very good at home in Citi Field. Unfortunately, this game's in Tropicana, but fortunately, that ballpark is actually very good for pitchers as well. It's rated towards the bottom and a lot of runs scored. It doesn't give up a lot of home runs. So Jacob deGrom in a pitcher's park in a great matchup, that's enough to do it for me. And you get him at a discount compared to a guy like Kershaw. The next guy that I wanted to use is Clayton Kershaw. Obviously, he's the best left-handed pitcher in the game right now with Chris Sale struggling. I believe he has 14 or 15 starts, something like that. He has 7 strikeouts or more, which that's just incredible. That's why he's priced so high. His floor is very high. His ceiling's even higher, but his price is also high. So if you're going to pick him, you're going to need some cheap options everywhere. Me personally, I'm going to try to fit deGrom and Kershaw into my cash game tonight. But that being said, you're going to need some minimum price guys at 2 or 3 positions, and that's not exactly ideal in cash games. So with that being said, there are 2 cheap options today, 2 pitchers that I like, and I think they're going to be worth taking flyers on, and I'll talk about why. The first guy is Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola is a right-handed pitcher for the Phillies. he faces the Padres in Petco Park, which is a big boost for a guy like him because this year in 3 or 4 starts he has been pitched very well. But the one thing about him is he give up a lot of home runs. He's given up 4 already this year. But in Petco, it's one of the biggest parks in baseball. That really helps him, and that makes him an even better option. So for a really cheap guy, he's very cheap on Fantasy Feud. It's 77,900. FanDuel, he's just over 6,000. DraftKings, he's right at 6,000, and he's pretty close to the minimum for pitchers on Aces as well, 5,500. So you're getting him at a very big discount for price. He's a good pitcher. He has a lot of downward action. He throws a sinker, gets a lot of ground balls, and he's actually had some strikeouts in his career since he's been called up the past couple starts. So you're getting a good player at a discount, and that's big because you can fit him with a guy like Kershaw. You can fit him with a guy like DeGrom and still afford the bats you want. And not a lot of other people will like to do that. So Nola is going to be the guy I build my tournament lineups around, or a lot of my tournament lineups around, pairing him with a Kershaw, with a Garrett Cole, with a DeGrom, or even with some Jose Fernandez as well. But for the fact is that him being that cheap, it allows you to fit some bats and those other guys that we just talked about. If you're getting both of them in a lineup, you're not going to be able to do that. So I think it gives you the leg up in cash and in GPPs. Now, the other guy that I wanted to talk about, the other cheap option, I think it's going to be very low owned simply because of the other options on the day. But the fact is he still has a good matchup, and that's Julio Teheran against the Marlins. Teheran is just priced just above Aaron Nola on Fantasy Feud and DraftKings. He's a little bit more expensive on FanDuel, and that's a big reason why is because he does allow base runners, but he gets strikeouts and doesn't allow a lot of earned runs. So that's probably why he's priced higher on FanDuel. But on those other sites, he's a big bargain and will be very low owned, as we just discussed. For me, he's always a GPP option because of his talent, his ability. That slider is incredible. He has great stuff. And he has the ability to strike out 10 or more almost any time he goes out. It's just the fact is that he's still a young pitcher and he can't quite figure it out. Now, one thing I've talked about before when I look at cheap pitchers, I like to see how they've done in good matchups. And Teheran's last 4 good matchups are against the Phillies, the Brewers, the Phillies again, and the Mets. All 4 of them are bottom-ranked offenses against right-handed pitching. He has reached over 21 fantasy points on DraftKings and well into the teens on FanDuel. That indicates that he's pitches very well in good matchups. And today against the Marlins, who are even worse than those 4 offenses against right-handed pitching, that gives him another good matchup. And the fact is, with the guys low-owned in a great matchup, it makes for a great play, let alone the discount you're getting him at compared to other pitchers. So those 2 cheap options I like are Nola or Julio Teheran. I can't fault you for taking any of those aces we mentioned between Kershaw, Fernandez, DeGrom, Keuchel, Sonny Gray, Garrett Cole. The list just keeps going. Cole Hamels and Lance Lynn. But the thing that I will be doing the most is I will have a lot of Kershaw, a lot of DeGrom. I will have Jose Fernandez and Julio Teheran in GPPs, and I will have a lot of Aaron Nola. The reason why I'm staying away from a guy like Sonny Gray or a guy like Garrett Cole and Cole Hamels and Lance Lynn, because their matchups aren't as good. And that's one more thing I wanted to talk about before we head out is the fact is when you're seeing on a slate with a lot of good pitchers, if there's a guy you don't love, there's no need to take him because there's a guy at a similar price point that's worth taking. That's my big thing with Garrett Cole because he faces the Dodgers, who have one of the better offenses in baseball, and they crush right-handed pitching. Now, a guy like Sonny Gray is a good GPP option because although he has been struggling relatively of late, other than his last start, he faces the Astros, who strike out a lot. So he's a decent tournament to play as well. So be sure to take a look at all the aces for today. My top guys are DeGrom and Kershaw. And be sure to don't discount those cheap pitchers. I think Aaron Nola and Julio Teheran could be in a lot of GPP winning lineup tonight if they're able to strike out a lot of hitters. And for me personally, I think it's worth using Aaron Nola in cash tomorrow, even though the rest of those pitchers have the opportunity to get 30. Because those rest of those lineups may be getting 60 or 70 points from their pitchers on 2 pitcher sites. But the problem is they're not going to get much for those bats, and Nola allows you to do that. That brings us to the end of our picking segment. So just remember, always look at the RotoCurve lineups page. When the lineups come out, it can change a lot. You can see a guy like Paul Goldschmidt sat yesterday, and it gave Joe Ross a bump, and we were able to put him in some lineups and do pretty well. So be sure to look at that. Be sure to look at the rest of the tools you can use on the RotoCurve site and use everything to your advantage to make this Friday a good one. Good luck, everybody, and always remember to stay classy, DFS.